In November 2013, we traveled to Urgup, which is in the Cappadocia region of Turkey. We stayed in a fabulous B&B called Razia Eva. It was carved right into the mountainside, out of the rock. This is Fatima and Levant. They took care of us. They were very kind and helpful. This is our room. You can see it's carved, like I said, right into the mountainside. The shelves and everything are carved into the walls, into the soft stone. And this is Fatima cooking us breakfast in the morning. She made the most fabulous breakfast, and we were soon hooked on the Turkish way of eating fresh fruits and veggies at every meal. We wandered the city. It was just amazing looking out on the hillsides, looking at all the places where people have lived for thousands of years. The houses were closed by the government decades ago, but you can still see signs of civilization. A couple people must still be living there. Satellite dish here and there. We wandered the streets, taking pictures, just being amazed and meeting the very friendly Turkish people. This guy befriended us and took us on a tour of his favorite herb and fruit shop, and then a private tour of a chapel that was being restored. He woke up the keeper and got the key from us and took us into the chapel. It was amazing. And we ended up at his restaurant where he cooked us a private dinner. And then we went to bed pretty early because the next morning we were getting up at 4 a.m. to go on a hot air balloon ride, pre-dawn. It was cold, but luckily the hot air heaters above us kept us nice and toasty. As the balloon lifted, we all had tears in our eyes. It was such an emotional feeling, just floating above the earth and looking at the sky and this landscape that's like nothing you've ever seen. Some people describe it as lunar. It's just crazy and amazing. And these pilots are so skilled. They raise and lower the balloon so you could see up close some of the detail on some of the rocks, and then they'd lift us way up in the sky so we'd see this giant overview. They're very talented. Our pilot was so good that when we landed, he landed our basket right in the back of the truck bed. Amazing. We floated for an hour or so as the sun rose. And then landed and celebrated with orange juice and champagne. And then, being the crazy tourists that we are, immediately jumped on a bus tour and started to travel the region. It was wonderful because we had a guided English-speaking tour who helped explain some of the things that we're seeing. This rock is called Lizard Rock. It's just carved this way by water and wind. And you can see this looks like a person. And this looks like the Queen of Hearts to me. And behind us, Camel Rock. You can see the different kinds of stone here which define the shape. The softer stone being etched away quicker in the harder stone, forming the caps. You could scramble up inside some of these buildings with internal stairways, or ladders that were just literally carved footholds into the rock. And then we went to a pottery making factory, and then on to an underground restaurant. Gorham is an outdoor museum where they've preserved a lot of the original cave dwellings. This is a church, and this is a painting of either a Christ figure or an astronaut. Your choice. This is Pigeon Valley. Pigeons played a big part in the life of the people here. As you can see, the soil is pretty barren, and they would carve these little holes into the sides of their buildings for pigeon roosts, and then they would gather up the pigeon poo and fertilize their gardens with it. Rami, who owned the B&B that we were staying in, took us on a 4-hour tour just through the back roads, and you can't call them roads, they're just footpaths for the most part, through the countryside from Urgup to another village. Here you can see some of the pigeonholes and some decoration where these people used to live. Here we're journeying to the church. That's what you can see in the distance up there. That doorway. More pigeonholes. And we've come to the church. Rami's explaining to us how the fire pit is dug so that the smoke is channeled right out of the building. And here you can see somehow amazingly preserved paintings on the walls and ceilings of the church. Here's another church with crumbling columns behind us, and the facade, as you can see, is breaking away. There used to be a pillar where Rami is standing, and this is called Elephant Rock. You can see vestiges of pre-Christian and Christian paintings here. Behind this one, the floral-like thing is pre-Christian, which has been painted over. It was just an amazing wander for hours through the countryside. We came upon this village. This village was inhabited very peacefully by both Greeks and Turks, and you can see the Greeks had the more elaborate ornamentation and the Turks the plainer. Small minarets were erected so as not to offend the non-Muslims. Later they were replaced by very, very tall minarets. But it was a sign of peaceful coexistence. This is one of those ladders that I mentioned earlier, footholes carved right up into the building. Here we are back in Urgup. This just shows different mineral deposits. This is interesting. It's hard to see. It's a round door that people use to block entrance and protect themselves. And again, another internal ladder. Back to another tour we took with our friend at sunset. The town of Urgup, the background lit at night. And again, our festive dinner. this time with Rami. The next day, we had another excellent tour. Our guide Umut took us to some underground systems where people lived thousands and thousands of years ago. Sometimes as many as 6,000 people would live underground for months and months at a time to escape marauders or environmental factors. And Umut was so wonderful and explained so much of the history and stories. These are tables in a classroom. We were given evil eye protection by our guides and also a little dance of celebration. We journeyed through so many villages and saw so much. It's hard to explain it all. So you should go and see it for yourself. It's amazing.